Good evening, everyone. I thought it'd be fun right now to talk about the cost of raising chickens in suburbia or the city. Just letting you know, I think this topic is a super interesting topic because a lot of people, given the price of eggs right now, are thinking about maybe raising chickens, but not everyone has the luxury to have a really nice farm, backyard, maybe in the middle of Texas, and so a lot of us have to figure this out maybe in our suburbia or city backyard garden. Before we begin, I want to let you know that I don't personally own chickens, and after all this research, I think I will never own chickens if I had to live in city or suburbia. The reason being is that chickens actually cost a lot more than expected, and I'll break down every single bit of the cost to you from raising chicks to the end of the life of the chicken. I also want to mention that it really depends on your HOA restrictions and city restrictions too. So if you do live in an area where there's HOA or if there is noise limits of the city, I would go ahead and contact your HOA before you go ahead and think about even owning chickens, because a lot of the times you're not allowed that. It's also to mention that chickens will attract a lot of predators like coyotes. I live in Colorado. We are known to have plentiful coyotes in this area. If you are in an area with a lot of predators, maybe rethink the subject. So, believe it or not, the cheapest part about raising chickens is actually purchasing the chicks. The average cost of chicks is around $5 per chick if you had to get them from a farm. This is minus gas prices for you to drive out there if you live in the city or suburbia. With inflation and taxes, realistically, you may be looking at a number of $7 per chick. And let's say you get 3 of them, because chickens actually like to live in flocks in order to keep healthy, especially hens. You're looking at $21 in general of purchasing the chick. Next, you have to raise the chicks. And raising chicks, I've been told, is pretty darn hard depending on if it's your first time or not. You need to have a brood box with sufficient bedding as well as really warm UV lighting in order to help the chick nourish and prevent them from being overly cold. In general, a brood box is around $70 as I see on Amazon here. Chicken coop bedding is easily around $20 per 4 cubic feet. With an average cleaning of around 4 times per year, and say you use half the bedding per time, you're looking at around $40 of bedding every year. So thankfully, a lot of the brood boxes, particularly the nicer ones right now, have these built-in thermostats and built-in water feeders and feeders for the chicks. Let's say you got a brood box that's not as fancy and you have to actually purchase all the feeders and thermostats separately. You're looking at an extra $30 maybe for the thermostat and $30 for the feeder. Lastly is chick food. So chicks actually only take around 1.5 months to grow to full-size chickens. And hopefully, because you want to raise eggs, you're looking at hens only. Altogether, that will cost you around $25 for 1 bag of mealworm, because it really just takes like a bag of mealworm for the chicks to mature into chickens. And that brings us to a total cost of $216 for the 1.5 months of raising chicks.
All right, so the actual raising of the chickens part. So looking at the coop, I'm looking at Amazon right now. Typically you can get raw materials to build your coop. Let's say you went to Home Depot. You can probably get chicken wire and a bunch of wood and bricks in order to make sure that you can build a coop. If you're not a handy person, coops are actually pretty hard to design because, again, predator is an issue, but also your pets. Just to remind you, your cats and dogs in this moment, when you start raising chicks, if they didn't get used to them as puppies, they will see them as food, i.e. prey. So I've seen a lot of reviews already on Amazon when I'm looking through the coop of people complaining that their animals actually broke into the coop when they were not home, and then the chickens were killed. So the coop, depending on if you had to get raw materials to build the coop, or if you had to get pre-made Amazon coop, depending on the size of your yard. Generally speaking, I think you're looking at around $250 for a really nice coop that's actually stable and safe and secure for your chickens. The feed. So the good thing about chickens is that they can live off produce that's left over. But a lot of the times you'll find that maybe you don't have as much produce, or produce is actually pretty expensive. If you're buying in the city or suburbia this nice organic vegetable because you don't want pesticides added and you're feeding that to your chickens, it really adds up. So let's say you get this good old Purina bag of food that's 50 pounds. The average hen eats around about 1.5 pounds per week. Let's say you get 3 hens, that's around 4.5 pounds of food per week. 50-pound bag that will then roughly last you around 11 weeks. The chicken will live an average of 7 years. That's an average duration for chickens, typically around 5 to 7, depending on the breed that you get. Looking at the normal Purina bag of $30 per 50 pound, you're looking at $992.72 throughout the lifetime of raising all 3 chickens on food. And if you add taxes in, let's just round that up to $1,000. All right, so the next one is contingency funds, which I think many people, when they raise chickens or think about the idea, don't really think about contingency funds as thoroughly. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with raising animals, especially chickens, for the first time if you've never raised them. For example, medical costs. Chickens are animals, which means they are subject to certain diseases, parasites, infections. And I don't know about you, but here in the city, every single time you go into the vet, probably for your dog or cat, you're billed at least $100 every single time you go in, because you're probably getting some kind of antibiotic, a checkup with a doctor costs something, consultation, as well as just a small, tiny prescription like a cream for your dog. Chickens are the same way. They're still animals, and generally speaking, avian pet vets over here, or bird vets, are still around the same price. This also actually includes the winter time. So in the winter time, chickens go into this hibernation zone and they actually stop producing as many eggs. If you do want your hen to stay healthy and lay just maybe a couple eggs a week, you would have to add an artificial lighting in order to heat the surrounding of the coop, as well as all these blankets and extra bedding and padding in order for your hens to survive the winter. In general, I would say it is very wise to leave $500 per year for contingency for an animal. For 7 years, that leaves $3,500 over the 7-year duration of your hens. So then if you add it all up altogether, your chickens will cost around $4,750 over the 7-year duration. All right, so let's think through logistics. That was purely the cost of raising chickens. There's a lot of logistics when it comes to raising the chickens themselves. Some chickens, depending on the breed, will stop laying eggs from the fall to the winter completely. I know that many people out there believe that you can keep eggs forever. That may be the case. Eggs don't, quote unquote, expire, but they do get kind of nasty. If you had to try keep an egg in the fridge for more than a month, you start to notice the deterioration of quality, and eventually there's funny taste to it. That's because the egg has probably gone off. Chickens make a lot of noise. I don't know if you've ever walked past a hen. My grandmother used to own some hens in her backyard, and they were the loudest things ever. We thought roosters were loud, but hens themselves are pretty darn loud. They're always talking to each other. So let's say if you're living in the city and there's not enough room because it's Los Angeles and people living on top of each other, the chances are you have to go explain to your neighbor. You probably should find out first if your neighborhood allows for such loud noises or if there's noise restrictions. Because chances are you're going to be waking up your neighbor at 6 a.m. in the morning, and maybe they're not going to be super excited about that. Bearing in mind, the chickens do have an average lifespan of 7 years, but only lay eggs for 2 years for most hens, 3 years if you're lucky. At that point, you've probably formed some bond with your chickens, and I don't know, after year number 3, how your daughter would feel, let's say, if you had to cook up good old fluffy bird that she always used to talk to in the crock pot. So there is an animal attachment part of that. Just so you know that chickens can be pretty sweet, especially hens. And so head to year 3 when they stop laying eggs, there is some hard decisions to be made whether you kill the chickens for meat or if you keep them as pets. And if you do keep them as pets, it's going to be more logistics and money to follow. As I have discovered, and as I've discovered through my friends, that chickens require a lot of time and energy in order to stay happy and healthy to lay good eggs for you. Say if you're a contract worker and your hourly rate is billed at $50 an hour. I have to mention this because we are in suburbia in the city, which means that the time that you spend is directly proportional to your wealth, i.e., time is money. Welcome to city life. So say, for example, you really need to spend 10 to 20 minutes each day tending to your chickens and around 1 or 2 hours on the weekends. Let's just say 2 hours per week. 2 hours per week you're spending on your chickens and your flock, tending to them, cleaning, etc. That means during the lifetime, if you're billed at $50 per hour, you've already spent $36,500 on your chickens as an investment because your time had been directly tied up to your chickens. So that is a whopping 728 hours that you're spending during the lifetime of your chickens tending to them. Now that's why a lot of people who own chickens really do it for the fun of it, because it could be really fun to raise an animal. But if you're someone who really values your time because your time is directly tied in with money, raising chickens is probably not the best way to then spend it. Now, the final part, the math. Assuming that your chickens actually could lay eggs for the first 3 years of their lives, you're looking at, for a grand total of 3 chickens with an average egg laying duration of 250 eggs per year, 750 eggs per year that's laid. In the lifespan of those chickens for 3 years of laying eggs, you're looking at a grand total of 2,250 eggs. Looking at the monetary value we calculated above, $4,966 divided by 2,250 eggs, you're looking at a whopping $2.21 per egg, which is quite a darn expensive egg. And that doesn't even account for the fact that there's $36,400 labor cost on your behalf cleaning up after the birds. Since these eggs would be considered pasture raised, given that you've taken all the precautionary measures and given your chickens enough time to roam, let's compare them to the pasture raised eggs at your local grocery store. That is $8 per dozen, which translates to about 67 cents per egg. See the difference here? $2.21 per egg versus 67 cents per egg. And pasture-raised eggs at the grocery store is actually the most expensive kind. You get pasture-raised, cage-free, organic, and then the normal chicken egg. I will say I do see some benefits in raising chickens. I think if you're someone who's retired or like, let's say a stay-at-home mom and you really need something to do, raising chickens is going to be, in my personal opinion, looking at it as a health investment for mental and physical health, because you're directly doing something every single day with your body, you're exercising it, you're thinking, using your mind how to raise the chickens well. There's a lot of comfort that an animal can provide. And so a lot of the times people who have raised animals in the past have been directly correlated with better mental health and physical health. I did a dog video just to break that down because dogs provide some really, really incredible health values to a human being, and I think so can chickens. On the other hand, of course, if you're looking at this on a pure monetary perspective, raising chickens in your backyard is probably not going to be as worth it as you think it might, especially if you live in the city or suburbia. I can't speak for farmland. Let's say if you're living in the middle of Texas or Wyoming and you have a lot of land and vet bills aren't expensive, maybe it is worthwhile, but for suburbia city, don't do it. It's really, really expensive unless you have the extra time and you want to. Let me know if you like this kind of video. This is definitely up my alley. I love doing cost analysis because as an engineer, it's so fun for me to go in and look at every little aspect of a life cycle and then looking at it from a very, very realistic perspective as opposed to maybe a penny pinching perspective. Let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see next on this subject, and take care, you guys.